Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the live stream. Welcome to the painting demo. Welcome to the painting session. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of painting. And I hope you'll join me in doing some painting too. I have been working all month on this fast, kind of like loose painting style, and more than like a style, it's more like just a practice. And one of the things I've really been focused on is figuring out how to, let me just do this so I can stop cropping my head so much, and my wires are in the way. But one of the things that I wanted to do with this practice, or this I guess it's like a practice, is just work fast so that I don't worry so much about the final product. It's not really about like, wow, how fast can I paint this? Not necessarily about that. It's more about letting go of expectations for perfection. And when you work fast, you really can't labor over decision making. So you just have to choose something, decide what color to use, decide the direction you want that line to go in. And so that's what I've really been playing with this month, with my patrons, with myself, and that's what I'm doing a little bit more of today. So welcome if you are not one of my patrons. This is mostly a stream for my patrons, but if you're not a patron, let me introduce myself. My name is Erica. I am a Texas artist and illustrator. I'm also an educator. I'm a teacher. So I've been teaching people how to paint for over 20 years, and paint and draw and all sorts of things, find their creative practice. And it's something I really feel very strongly about. I studied art, but I kind of after I had my daughter and went into working, and I'm an art teacher. I get to make art every day, but after that I became kind of lost. I kind of lost my art practice, and so it's just been a way of finding that again, for more than just wow, I want to make beautiful paintings. It's more about all the other benefits I see from having a creative practice. It's important to me. It's important to for me to feel like I have a way to unplug and disconnect and really refocus my energies on observation and visual design. So it's been really good for me to find a creative practice. And one of the things I had to let go of when I started my new creative practice as an adult after art school and all that is letting go of this idea that everything had to be really refined and very polished and very perfect. So I have found more satisfaction and more joy in my painting practice since I started to just really embrace a looser, more finished, or less finished overall product. And this might not be exactly the style or technique that you like, but I do think that there's still really a lot of benefits for developing a creative practice. Basically just finding time on a fairly regular basis to make something. It's really good for my brain. I notice it is really good for my anxiety and mental health. And so I just feel like this can be something good for everybody, whether you consider yourself an artist or not. So if this all sounds kind of something you want to do, I invite you to join me on my Patreon, of course, but here also, because today we're just going to do some very loose, pretty quick painting. It's more about feeling the process, looking at how things move when you are laying down your marks, and, looking at an image and trying to record it in a way that feels good for you. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you're playing in your sketchbook. Thank you for joining. I'm so glad to see you again this month. We are making quite a bit. So this has been a very, very productive month for me. I have a big stack of paintings, and this doesn't include the ones that are in my sketchbook that I haven't taken out. Usually I take them out because I really want to kind of frame these. Let me see if I could do a little, I don't know if I can do this. But I have so many different ones here. I've had such a fun time making them. And like I almost don't want to stop doing this next month. So I think I'm going to keep it going in December. Maybe not for the Patreon, but definitely for me. So anyway, I think we should get going. Let me tell you a little bit about what I'm going to be using today. Again, most of this is about feeling out the movements of painting, getting accustomed to recording from images. I'm definitely not going for anything like really realistic or anything like that. So you, of course, should find a way that works for you. Some people like to be a little bit more rendered. Maybe you want to work a little slower. All of that is okay. The best part of this, I think, is that you get to kind of find what works for you. So I invite you to take what you need from this and leave what you don't and just find your own way of doing this. But I'm going to kind of talk through my process and give you some like insight into how I make decisions as an artist and a painter, okay? So let's go ahead and move on over here, and I'm going to share my materials with you. So I'm going to be working with acrylic gouache. You should work with whatever you like. I'm working with these gouache right here. I just have a box of them that are right nearby, but I do also, in my practice, I do a lot of marker drawing, so I use these quite a bit. And you can use markers for this if you want to. I also really love markers that are like, I'm going to show you some more. Like acrylic markers like these, and I enjoy these as well. These feel kind of like painting, but they're a little bit more precise. So that could be something that you can work with. But I'm really feeling brushwork lately. I love to see some really scribbly brush strokes. So I'm using today some very stiff bristled brushes. These are, I want to say they're all synthetic, I think. Even these, I kind of feel like these are natural, but I'm thinking that they're not. I thought maybe there was a hint on them, but no. These are all very stiff kind of synthetic brushes, and when they have like these kind of, you know, like rough or like, I don't know, I want to say splayed, but I don't feel like they're totally splayed brushes. But when the bristles start to kind of like get a little bit old and a little bit like misshapen, that's when I like them the most. So that's what I'm using right now. These are my favorite, the Princeton Catalyst synthetic brushes. I like those quite a bit. I like a short handle, but some people love a long handle. I feel like I like a long handle if I am painting on canvas. But in my sketchbook, I like to have something short, something I can carry in my backpack or my painting box so that I can use this anywhere I like. I will be using the Masterson Stay Wet, what do you call that? Palette? I don't know. Yeah, like it's just called the Stay Wet palette, I think. This is a palette system that allows you to use a paint like an acrylic paint that will dry very fast, and you cannot reconstitute this paint after it's dried. So it's going to allow you to use this and close it up with the lid that I have here, and it will keep it from drying. It'll keep it pretty wet for a while. It does require some prep time. You're supposed to take the paper, and let me show you what it says here. This is the package. You're supposed to use this paper that you buy for this palette, and I want to say like you like soak it for like 10 minutes or put it in the microwave in some water for like, I don't know, a minute or something like that. And then it is prepped and primed and ready to work with. But I don't have time for that. I decide to change my palette at the spur of a moment or whatever. And so I just get the paper and I'll put it inside my palette like this, and I'll spray some water on it. And then usually I just flip it over. There's a little sponge underneath it, right? This comes with it. Mine is very old and probably needs to be replaced, but it comes with a sponge like this. And I just usually put the wet side down on the sponge. The sponge has also been moistened as well, just so you know. And then you can put your paints on your paper, and it will stay wet for a very good amount of time. I mean, days, weeks, maybe. I don't know about weeks, but I feel like weeks. So I'm just gonna pick a few colors. I like to have a warm and a cool red, blue, and yellow. I tend to love and lean on pinks over reds, so that's what you'll usually see on my palette. Let me just put this one on there. So I'm putting a few reds on here. My favorite blue, I don't see it here. I'm about to rage if I don't find it. No, I'm not. I'm not really gonna rage, but I am hoping that it pops up. Oh, here it is. I like to use Prussian blue for my shadows, almost like always. Sometimes I'll mix some stuff into that, but I'll usually use something like that. And I'm just gonna put this like other blue here, and I want another one. I'm just feeling like today I might want this ultramarine. I don't know. Maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. And I usually use a fair amount of white. So I'll put some white on here too. And I have other colors here. If I feel like I need them, I'll grab them. Sometimes I like, not this deep green, but this one. Like a Viridian or a Phthalo green. So I'm just going to put some there. I don't know if I'll really need that. And I think I have Carmine red. Yes. Should we put some warm red on there? Something kind of a little more orangey? Yeah, let's do that. Just in case, you know. We don't know if we'll need it, but we might. So there are my base colors for now. And I have my paints here so I can add more whenever I feel like it. I also have a timer. So I'm going to be using a timer for my painting sessions. And if you are new here, just know on the page where my Patreon, where you saw this link on the Patreon, there is the photos that we're going to draw are there. You can use that. I like to have my iPad handy nearby. You can see I've got mine right here with the pictures visible. And that way I can use those to paint from. But I'm also going to put them up here on the screen. Let me make sure they're all working right. There's our first image. So you'll see the image right here on screen. And you can paint from that if that's good for you. That is like too small for me. So I do need to have a little side monitor or device of some sort that will help me to see them up close if I want to. I'm also working with the Canson Mixed Media Sketchbook. I like this paper. It's smooth, it's thick, it's 98 pound or 160 gram. It's 9 by 12, so these are a little bit smaller. I have a bigger one right here next door, so if I feel like, or I need to let this dry, I'll go over to this other sketchbook. So I have another one handy, but in the past, I paint and then I just turn the page and it's been okay. One of my paintings did stick, but it was fine. So, you know, if you feel like you're not gonna like to turn the page on your paintings, you can have like a second sketchbook out and you can use that. I also have torn these out of the book so that I could just move them aside every time I'm done. And I like that because then I can just like put those in a frame and they are like instant art for your house or your friends or Christmas gifts, whatever you want to do. So do what you like in this process. I have some water and I have a drink. So go get yourself something nice to drink. I also have my date stamp that I love to put the date of things on there. I did a daily painting prompt this month on my Patreon, and I had a prompt for every single day. And instead of stamping them for every day, I just stamped them the days that I painted, because sometimes I made 8 paintings and sometimes I made 1 painting. So I like to use that just to keep track of my like workflow, right? So we're going to start with this first image. If everybody is ready, I would love to know what you're working with today. If you have a moment to put into the chat, like I'm working with acrylic gouache. Is anybody doing something different? Let me know if you have time to, you know, move away from your paintbrush. I do also recognize that, painting, it's very hard to chat in the chat. So feel free to, ask me questions in the chat if you like to. I try my best to pay attention to it because sometimes I get into the zone and I forget. But also don't feel like you have to. We're just painting together, and I'm here to just like guide you, and I'll chat with you about my process and give you a little bit of insight. And you, of course, if you're an experienced painter, do you. And if you're not an experienced painter, feel free to take what you like from my practice. And if you're an experienced painter and you want something different, you like to try something different, please join me however you want. I think show up for yourself however you like. Hi, Elise. It's so nice to see you here. I mostly did this stream at this time for my friends in Europe and on other parts of the world who usually don't get to join us on our evening streams because I work during the day, so usually I can't have evening streams, all my streams are evening. They're not during the day. But today I am on break, so I'm here to paint with you guys. All right, so gouache, and I'm going to go ahead and set the first timer. These are going to be 10-minute sessions. What I will tell you, and the picture's up there. If you need a little more time, you can start it now. But what I recommend is that you just try to capture whatever you can in that time. And if the timer goes off and you are not finished, I leave them like that usually. And then sometimes I'll use that as like a starting point, and I will come back and rework it later, add to it. So feel free to take these as like beginnings, and they might not be finished paintings at the end, but I always love the kind of like look I get from like, rushing through that first, few minutes. I'm sorry, let me fix this real quick because I see that the image is a little distorted and I don't like that. Let me see if I can fix it. Thinking that maybe I can't. I'm hoping I can, but I don't see it fixing. I guess I don't know. It looks a lot chubbier on my other screen here, so maybe I don't know. I guess I'm wrong. But let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Christy Jane. You are working with Prismacolor color erase pencils. Nice. Okay, I can't wait to see. I hope you'll be able to share at the end if you can. We have a little community chat on Patreon, but also you can tag me on Instagram. I am Erica Beeswax, and you can show me your work there. So I got 10 minutes on the clock. I don't think you're going to be able to see the clock. I'll try to keep it like nearby, but don't worry. I'll try to give you an update on how much time we have remaining. I know that that's kind of like a little crazy to just kind of hope that we're moving in time, but I'll try to give you a heads up when we're like about halfway done, and then when we have about a minute left. So I'm going to start with, I usually start with like a big brush, and that way I can, work towards small details. And I always like to start with like light colors to begin so that way I can build up onto them. So I like to leave room for like a cast shadow because I love a cast shadow. And again, since we have so little time, I'm just going to try to see how much I can cover in the time that we have. I love a nice scribbly mark. So I try to be very loose and very playful in this stage because I want like texture and I want line work. And if I start out too precious, I have a tendency to kind of retain that kind of like very stiff or like tight look, and I don't really want that. I'm very, very into a very rough, loose, playful mark right now. So that's what I'm going to try to capture. I do love a cast shadow, so I have a tendency to, I usually put this in last, but I wanted to kind of make sure it will fit, so I'm putting it in there. And of course, I can't say this enough, like your practice is yours and it can look very different than mine, so don't feel like your work should look like mine or needs to look like mine. We are two different artists, and I feel like we always kind of can get like inspiration from other artists, but the beautiful thing is that usually your hand is going to produce a different mark, and you should have something that looks different, and I think that that is something to be respected and appreciated and relished. So definitely like lean into your own style and your own technique, and don't worry if it looks different from other artists that you like. I think that's the magic of making, is that we all can draw the same exact thing, but our paintings will most likely be quite different. And I think that's so amazing. Like, I just love that. Of course, also, if you're working with different materials, it's going to look very different as well. The kind of marks that you can get from color pencils, I love the textures of color pencils, are very different than the marks you're going to get from paint if you're working in gouache. So, lean into that. I'm so happy to be spending today painting with you guys instead of shopping online or something like that. This is, for me, such a better, more productive way to spend my time. But I do sometimes look for a few art supply deals if I can find them. I used to always buy on Black Friday, I would buy canvases because you would get them like, you can get them like buy one, get one free at like places like Michael's or things like that. But this year, I don't feel like I really need anything. So I don't need to buy anything at this point in time. There is a company that I've been like following lately, and I really want to order some stuff from them. They're called St. Louis Art Supply or something like that. And I just really like the items that they carry. Like, their stuff is just like really beautiful. It's 5 minutes remaining on this painting session. Just a heads up. 5 minutes remaining. So as I am painting, I am mixing a lot of my colors here, and I'm just, kind of scribbling the paints together and seeing what I make. You can use colors that are realistic, and we call that like, what do we call those? Those are local colors, which is just like the colors that you see. And if you want to, I have a tendency to like to play with color a little bit more. So I'll use colors that are not realistic, and we call those arbitrary colors. I love to do like a different shade for, something like a lemon or whatever, so that it would look a little bit more imaginative or a little strange. And I kind of love that. I've switched over to a smaller brush now, because once I lay in the big like shapes, I like to come in with something a little bit smaller so that I can refine some of the details that I want to put in. Again, I don't want anything to be a little like too polished, so I don't have anything that small. I'm working with everything it's pretty chunky. So I'm just going to kind of lean into these messy brush strokes. So it's like my favorite to do. I love a messy brush stroke. And it took me a really long time to get to a place where I enjoyed that. I was always a very, like a big overthinker when it came to making art. I would struggle to finish stuff. I would leave everything unfinished, and it would be very frustrating for me because I just didn't want to finish things. I think I felt like scared about finishing them because I wasn't sure they were going to be successful, or I wasn't sure that I was going to like it or other people were going to like it. I just really put too much weight on, you know, that final product and what it was going to mean for me or for other people. And that kind of like really stifled my practice. My dog is, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my dog is very rowdy sometimes, and she's being rowdy right now. So I apologize if you can hear her barking. She is probably hearing the mail carrier pass by, and that is her arch enemy. So I'm sorry to mail carriers. Well, we love you, but my dog Lucy, she doesn't like anything. She's like a cranky old lady. She's like, get off my lawn. That's Lucy for you. Somebody told me that even though I hear Lucy very loud, that you all usually can't hear her. So maybe you're not hearing her. I hope that's the case, but she's loud. So anyway, like I was saying before Lucy rudely interrupted me, yeah, I put a lot of value on like that final product because I felt like it meant something. Like if it's not good, well, what does that say about me as an artist? And if I made mistakes or people didn't like it, what does that say about me as an artist? Or it's just so silly, like so dumb. And it took me a really long time to kind of get out of that way of thinking. We have 1 minute left. And I'm so glad that I'm out of that like very toxic way of thinking. It's just not good. I mean, I think that if a painting doesn't look good at the end, it doesn't really matter. Like it's not the end of the world. I always feel like it's taken me a long time to realize that it's more about, for me, it's more about the practice. And with practice, I tend to grow as an artist and I'll get better just by practicing. And sometimes the risk or the gamble in practice is that things might not be great and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And that's okay. That's what I like. Okay, so this is like a little lemon, I think. It kind of looks like a lemon, right? That was the timer in case you didn't hear it. That's our timer, and that is the time of our 10 minutes being done. I tried to leave this very rough, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. If I could go back, if I had another minute, and I might do that later, I think that's going to be our video for Patreon, is like, what do you do once you have these like 35 partially painted forms? What now? So I'll show you how I go back into them, how I play with them a little bit more, and that's the video I'm working on for you, my patrons, right? So that should be finished today or tomorrow, fingers crossed. So yeah, I like to put the name on here too, and then I'm just gonna put the date. So today is the 29th. You guys, I cannot believe we're already at the end of November. That is wild. So here's my first painting. I love it. I'm happy with it. I'm going to leave it like that. Right. So I really just want to like pop on over to the other page. I also use sometimes some like, this is just me trying to air dry it. I like to sometimes put like a little sheet of paper here, and then I will put it on there, but I don't have anything on this other page, so it doesn't really matter if some of this gets a little smushed. I think I'll just switch over to this book for the next one. So I'll keep one drying while the other one is in practice, right? Here's my next page. Let's start our next painting. I'm just gonna open it up like this. Okay. So first image, all done. We're on to image number 2. Here is number 2. It's pretty small here, so my apologies for that. But I mean, we painted grapes last time, and that was like, was harder than it looked. So we're going to do 10 minutes on this grape one. I'm going to take a quick drink break. And 10 minutes on the clock. Let's go. Okay. So we have these like green grapes. Last time I painted them, they were fun, but they were definitely a lot harder than I thought they were going to be. I'm going to make something kind of, I'm going to try to make something kind of limey, like a limey green. I feel like that's not the yellow I need. I need permanent lemon. So I'm going to put some more paint on my plate and mix that in right there. And again, I always like to start with something pretty light so I can build values. Oof, I feel like this is a hard one for me because of the composition. Like it's long and my paper is short and this is long, or short and this is long. So I'm gonna try to make sure that this composition works for me. It might not, and if it doesn't, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. So what I mean by that is like sometimes when you have like conflicting short and like a long image, it might feel kind of like stuffed into the page. It might not feel like it's you know, like what's the word I want to use? It doesn't feel like it's complementing the shape of the paper, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that can be like, I don't know. There can be, that can be hard to, there may be no resolution for something like that is what I'm trying to say. And if that happens, you know, what I'm going to do, because I can already see like I don't have enough room for that stem. I think what I'm going to do is you can paint off the page, right? There's no reason why you can't just keep painting until, you know, it touches the edge, and if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, because that's definitely an option. I can also make this a little bit shorter if that's something that I want to do. If I think I can work with something like that, I think that's what I'm going to try right there. So I'm going to try to end it right there. I don't want it to come, I either want it to go all the way off or to stay a little bit further in. So we're going to just try that. We'll see how that goes. And I'm just using the image to find the directions of all these lines. Now, obviously, sometimes things have a lot of stuff happening. Like this picture, I feel like this is one of those pictures where there's a lot of stuff happening. It's very easy to kind of get lost in that image. And so I sometimes will just pick a few things. I don't paint everything. I'll just pick and choose what I want to include. And I invite you to do the same if that's something that you think will work for you. So I like to put in the lights on my grapes, not necessarily as a finish like light there, but definitely to figure out where they're going to go. Where are those lights going to land on the grapes? They help me to kind of orient myself there. Then all these grapes are kind of in shadow, so I'm going to leave those a little bit darker. And again, we're not doing super refined paintings here, so they can be, I mean, I would like them to be a little bit more textured. I like them to be a little bit rough. So we're going to try that. We'll see where they land. I love like brushwork like that. I try so hard to put that onto my paintings. And again, that was one of the things that, you know, I always thought that I had to try to get rid of to make a good painting. Like you can't have any brush strokes, and you have to have really you know, polished, very finished painting or blended paints. And I don't think that that is a thing for me anymore, which I'm glad I'm recovering from that. I think it's a good thing. But I think, you know, one of the most like exciting things for me when I see someone else's paintings is I want to see their brushwork. We have 5 minutes remaining because I feel like that's like, it's like it documents their hand, and I want to like know how their hands move. I mean, if you're an artist, I think like that's something very exciting to see. It's exciting to see how, what the potential is for your medium and your tools. And when you see somebody doing something interesting, it's like, wow, cool. Let me see. Sarah's in the chat. She says, my biggest problem with using a timer is that my head gets stuck in how to approach the colors, and it distorts my seeing where I want to go. I think, yeah, I feel like that's fair. And you know what I do think it will help you is, because I think that's absolutely like the hardest part. I think personally that colors are such a challenge, especially value. I think value is the hardest thing. Like, how dark is that? What's the contrast like? And what I would recommend to you is, just go with the first color nearest by you, right? Let's say, and just pick the first thing that kind of pops into your head, even though you're not sure about it or it might not be the right choice. I do think that my color instinct has gotten better since I practice, So I think the more you practice, the better your instinct gets for like what color to choose, and you're able to make like faster decisions. And again, it's not necessarily about speed, but it is more about like not letting, decision fatigue kind of stop you from practicing. Because for me, that's what it was. It was like, I just didn't, I was having such a hard time making decisions about colors and composition. And then sometimes it would just be like, you know what, I'm just going to start this tomorrow. And then like tomorrow never comes, I just kept on putting it off and putting it off. And I just think that is something that's like we get in our own heads about those things. And so you're kind of right. Like we do become kind of like head cases because we become our own, like, worst enemy, as they say. And yeah, that's absolutely something that is valid. And it's hard to kind of get over, and that came for me with like a lot of like doubt. I had a lot of doubt about how I was going to proceed in my painting. And so it was just easier to just say like, you know what, I'll decide this later, and then I would put off my painting to another day. And when I stopped, I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of like bad choices for color. And I think that that's, okay, because that's where I learned a lot of stuff. Because I think sometimes now, even if I do still do that. Like, I don't think so much with color, more like with shapes. Sometimes I don't read the what do I want to say? Like the nuance of the forms in a way that I think works, like makes it look like a successful, banana or grape or whatever, right? And I tend to do something like a little bit more generic. And what I would like to practice a little bit more is, kind of having that same sort of instinct, but for form and shape. Like being able to notice those little things and find a way to quickly record them so that they capture that, like, essence of a form in a way that is, intuitive, but also what I'm trying to avoid is, making generic stuff. Like I know that I do that. I know that sometimes I'll just be like, it's round, but it's not really fully round. Like sometimes it'll be like a little flat on one side, and my brain sometimes doesn't want to do that. Like it just wants to make a round shape. And I see that a lot with my students, my young students. That I teach high school, so they tend to do that. I'm like, that's not, like, just because it seems round doesn't mean that that's like the full like nature of its, shape and form. And I want them to like not make assumptions. And I know that I do it too. I make assumptions about what a shape might look like. And like when you can't see the side of something and you just assume that it would be, a diagonal liner. I don't know if this is making any sense, but I have a tendency to do that, and I'm trying to move away from that. We have less than a minute remaining. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you very fast. Time's almost up. Look for those final touches that you want to put in and put them in before the timer goes off. There we go. So this is all I got on mine. I'm going to go ahead and put in some, should I put text? I think I'll put text. I think putting the text in is just like my favorite part at the end. Does it need it? No. But do I like putting it in? Yes. I like a messy, loose text. I was going to write grapes and then I suddenly started just writing green. Are these green grapes or these yellow grapes? Or no, wait. What do we call them? Green or white? White grapes, right? Don't they call it like white grape juice when it comes from green grapes? I don't know. So I'm going to try to make it look like it's going behind the grapes. And so sometimes I'll come back later when I have a little bit more time and I'll repaint like right on the edges so that it does look like it goes behind. I don't know. I just like that. So again, another date right there. Same date as today. I'm going to move this to the side. There are my green grapes. Bring back my lemon sketchbook. And now it's mostly all dry. We'll just skip over. Next page. Okay, this one's a little more involved. Don't be afraid. Oh, wait. I see a problem. Hold on. Let me fix that for you. This one is definitely more involved. It's more like a still life. So I believe we might want a little bit more time on this one. So we'll be a little more forgiving or a little more generous with the time if we need it. So this is our next one. I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock, and if we need more time, I'm probably going to stop because I want to write the text, but I'll leave the image up while you wrap up that. Now, for this one, I think because it's a lot more stuff, I'm going to try to work with a smaller brush to start. It's still like fairly large, but I'm just going to very loosely block in things. And again, if you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of things in here, feel free to just pick a few things or one thing out of here to paint. So I'm going to try to capture the overlap. Ugh, those grapes. Why did I do this to us twice with grapes? Like torture. The grapes are actually a little bit harder than I anticipated. But again, I like this because there's so many different shapes to play with. So we have like the round and then, the banana shape, whatever shape that is. And the little rounds, which are the grapes. And then these beautiful shadows. Just going to just kind of sketch that in. Some people also really like to sketch in pencil to begin. And if you feel like that's something that would help you, by all means, do that. One of the reasons why I don't do that for this exercise, this like fast painting, is because it slows you down. And then I would have a tendency to get kind of like caught up in the details of sketching when eventually this will become a painting. So I have to like remind myself like this is not a drawing, so don't spend all your time thinking about the drawing part of it. Just start painting. So I kind of blocked everything in. I have an idea of where things are gonna go. That silvery kind of fabric I'm not gonna deal with because that looks hard. So I'm not gonna do that. That looks like it needs a good amount of time. But I am just gonna focus on as much of these fruit forms as I can, whatever I can do in the time that I have. So bananas are notoriously hard for me, I think. And I don't know if you agree with me, but I think like, oh my gosh, they're very easy to get wrong. Like, and by wrong, I just mean like the shape looks funny and it doesn't quite, read as banana. I feel like that's something that can easily happen with that kind of a shape because it's just so like nuanced, you know. So one of the things I like to do when I'm painting is if I make a color, I kind of like look all over the page for that color and I place it everywhere I see it. So I try to be, I always tell my students that I feel like this is lazy painting because I'm trying to be really efficient. Like if I already have this color in my brush, I'm going to scan the rest of this photo or image for any area where I think that color can work for it. And so I'll just kind of like look over the whole thing and see if there's anywhere else that could use that color. And then I'll put that in where I think it might fit. Like this color, it might work a little bit on this grape. This grape looks a little warmer. Maybe this one in the back here too. Maybe a little bit on some of these. We have that one and then this guy. Maybe there. Maybe a little bit there. But most of this is maybe a little bit right here at the base of that, whatever that thing is. Is that the bottom of a pear? A quince? It kind of looks like citrus skin, so I don't know. Wait, I'm going to go back to that brush. I think we need something more orangey. So bring this one in right here. And here I'm able to kind of like correct my forms if I need to. I see like this one was a little bit too small, I think. It's still pretty small, but maybe some of this on the apple because it's got that warmth on the top where the stem comes from. Some of this on the bananas for sure. We have 5 minutes remaining, or a little bit around 5 minutes. I'm gonna add a little more yellow to this right here. Maybe some for the shadow on this banana. Maybe some on this little grape right there. So I'm just kind of picking and choosing those areas that need it. I'm gonna add a little white to that same yellow. And it's kind of overlapping my green, so it might have a little bit of green in it, and I'm kind of okay with that. Like I think it'll be a good addition for these bananas. This one at least I think has a little bit more. I already feel like the shape of the bananas are going to be weird, but I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to worry too much about that. It's definitely hard to get that banana shape in my opinion. I think it's more of a challenge than I usually than I think it is. I'm like, oh, banana, no big deal. But then you start painting and you're like, oh no, what is with this shape? It is so weird. Okay, now everything's kind of getting really full right now, so I'm going to switch to a smaller brush so I can put in some more like refined forms here. A little bit of green on this guy here. There is some green over here on the top of the bananas. So I'm using that same green that's on my brush right now. I'm literally looking for all those little bits where I see green. A little bit on top of that grape. Right there. We have about 3 minutes remaining. So when this is like right now, I feel like I have a long way to go and I only have 3 minutes remaining. I'm going to try to pick up my pace a little bit right now. So what that means is I'm going to move a little bit faster, and so it's going to be a lot more like raw, right? It's not going to be perfectly refined, and that's okay. I'm just going to try to block things in so that I get them in as best I can, and I can come back later if I want to like build on those forms. But I think there's something really like exciting and fun about the marks you get when you're in a hurry, and that's what I'm trying to capture right now. So I want to do this with haste because I want this to reflect that kind of like speediness that expedience. So I'm just going to look around and see where I can put in those colors. I think I can use some of that same color on this part of the apple. And then I'm also, before time gets too far away from me, I'm going to put in that shadow. So try to mark that in. I kind of already blocked it in, so I can use that as my guide. Less over here. So it is very loose right now. And I love that. I feel like that's the kind of mark making that I can only get when I'm in a hurry. And I won't do that if I don't give myself a timer. I will definitely keep things really, really like clean, or I'll try at least to keep things clean. So I do enjoy this kind of like speediness that can be stressful, but we have about a minute and, I don't know, like 10 seconds remaining. I'm just looking at that little clock. It's somewhere around there. Not very much time. So now I look at it and I can see that my bananas have like the least amount, I think, of coverage. So I'm going to use this time on those bananas. Again, I might not finish, and that's okay. I'm just going to try to get some marks on it. Need some of this brown right here on the top. A little bit of shadow right here between the two bananas. Maybe a little bit more here. And again, I'll probably be able to come back to this later, and I can play with it a little bit more later on. We have less than a minute remaining. So final touches, look for those areas that haven't been addressed yet. If you can, just at least put some paint on and like a mark that you feel like works for those areas. Like right here where I don't have anything on there yet. And I'm going to try to put some light on this orange right here. A little bit of light on this apple. Some light on these grapes. I don't think this would have been the right color, but I can come back later and address it. And there we go. That's all I got. I don't think I'm going to put any words on here, but I will put, you know, sometimes I want to put like, maybe I will put a word. Let me put something on here. I don't know. I don't want to put still life, but I will put like fruit. I just really like the juxtaposition of the text and the images, and I like how it looks so childish, like the lettering. I like that. Okay, so here is my little fruit still life, and this one, of course, this one was a little bit more involved. There's a lot more stuff in here. If you really look at that image, there's some really beautiful reflections of color on the surface. So I kind of think this will be fun to come back into, and I think what I'm going to do is revisit these in these tools that I have. They're called let's see if I have one to show you. They're okay, I don't have one here, but they're called Stabilo Woodies, and they're like little crayons that are water-based, and they're chubby, and they just make like a cute, chunky, kind of crayonish line. I think color pencils would be nice to revisit this with. So I'm probably going to do that later. And again, that'll be for the video, right? So I'm going to put this away. There's my fruit. I'm going to come back to this sketchbook so I can let this dry. I'm just going to alternate between the two because that's already pretty dry there. So take a little break if you need to. Take a little water break. And then we'll start our next image in just a minute. Oh, my water is closed. All right. We are doing great. We have done already, what, 3 images? That's quite a bit. Our next image is this one, which is very cute, but also, I think, quite challenging. So we're going to put 10 minutes on the clock. And of course, I'm always going to be remembering that I can come back and rework these later. The images will be available on the Patreon. These are not my pictures. I grabbed them from Pinterest. And so they're on Pinterest and they're just beautiful pictures. I thought that would work fine. And I left them like linked on my Patreon page, and you can go back and, you know, zoom into them if you want to. So our next one is 10 minutes long again. Timer starts now. This one also I feel like is a challenge. I think that whenever things are sitting inside of other things, that can be hard to capture. So I'm going to try my best, and that's all we can do, right? So I'm going to just use this orange. It's a little darker than I would like, but when something is like this, where it's kind of seated in an object, I'm going to probably have to, you know, sort of like block it all in, because I need to make, what I'm going to try to do is make sure that the things that are touching are touching. So here's another orange right there. And I can see that this one in the back, it is smaller, but it's definitely cropped by these. So these might need to be a little bigger. It looks smaller because it's in the back. This one probably needs to be even bigger. Let's make that one a little bigger. So context is really everything here, and it's kind of pressed up against that little container. There's a little bit down there too. I'll do that one later. Let me try to get this container in. Just want to make sure I get the placement right. Or it doesn't have to be that right, but it can be, I want to get it like as correct as I can. And there's a leaf here. So I actually cannot see that stuff that's there, but I'm making an assumption again. Exactly what I was saying that I'm trying not to do is I don't want to always assume what's happening, but I do find myself doing that sometimes. So we're going to try and be a little bit more observant. Something like that. Oh my gosh, I love this like orange and blue stuff that's happening there. It's definitely not something I want, but I like it. It's a pleasant surprise for me. I'm here for it. And then I'm going to start to block in some of these leaves. I think it's more like that. I love, if I have a really like firm bristled brush, I love to scrub. I love to scrub with my brush so that way I end up with these like really dry brush strokes. It's like, ugh, those are my favorite. Those are my favorite kind of brush strokes. And I didn't used to like them, but I do. I'm very into them right now. I feel like they just like speak about the artist's hand. I always say that. I want to see the artist's hand. I don't want it to look like I mean, I want to know that it was a human who made this. I know that for a while there it was very like popular to make work that's like so realistic, and I mean it still is, I think. That's not for me. I want to see a human made this and not I don't know, a machine. So whenever I see like the messy strokes of the artist's hand, like, oh, that's so, like, that does it for me. I love it. I'll put some more yellow on my palette because I'm out. Probably the most used color today for me. And I have all these like leaves here. So I'm going to put what I can in. I'm going to let that one go off the edge. I think that can work. Maybe. We'll see. Right there. Something like that. Okay. So now I kind of have everything blocked in, and I can start to add in the placement of those like fruit that are inside. I really love the two colors here in this image, that orange and the blue together. Beautiful. I love those two colors together. Those complementary colors are really working here. Now there are like, I don't know, there's one of the things that I think is very challenging about color is always value, right? I mentioned that a little earlier. And that is something that I am always working on every day. And that is like something that I think I'll work on for the rest of my life. And I feel like that's the thing that I feel the weakest in is like color and value. So I'm always trying to experiment and explore different ways to find color and value connections. But I think the first step and the most important thing is like seeing them, right? So sometimes that can be hard too, just like recognizing like a color that looks like it's a different value. Might be the same, it might be like orange, but it is a very different value, and you have to like see those things in order to be able to record them. And so that's something I'm always trying to work on. Definitely really hard. But one of the things that I will do when I'm trying to change the value of something is just use a little bit, instead of going like leaning on something like black, try leaning on its complement color, which is like the opposite. So for these oranges, its opposite color is blue, right? So, I mean, if you have like a color that you think could work for that, you know, mixing, then try it. Like I have 3 different blues here, and that's where like I'll try one blue and I'm like, no. And then I'll try a different blue. And so sometimes it takes me a minute to kind of figure out which is the right temperature and like what color do I want to use to record that. And like sometimes there's these like areas like right in here. It's very dark and I don't think it should be black, but I know that it needs to be kind of like a darker desaturated version of that orange in there. So I will mix in a little bit of the complement to try to get to that shade or show that sort of like shadow that's landing on it right there. Now it's not, I don't always nail it, and that's what I'm always working. I mean, most of the time I don't nail it. I can probably say very rarely do I nail it. So I'm always trying to find a way to learn about that. Sarah says that you've ordered quite a few art supplies from St. Louis Art Supply. Nice. They do have really unique things. That's what I'm looking for. I started like, I've never ordered from them before, but they came across my feed, and I just really like what they carry. Like their items are unusual. And so I really want to get something from there. And I think that I'm going to, you know, if I do get myself some holiday treats, I'm going to buy them from there. Usually I always ordered from Blick. That was always my go-to. See, I'm using blue right now for this little, okay, wait, really quick, 2 minutes left. And I really want to desaturate that. So I want to use some of that orange to tone it down. And I'm actually going to use the same orange that I used here. And I think this will be okay. We'll see. Let's see what it looks like when I put it down. This is the color. I think it could work. I mean, we'll see. Let's put it right up against the other side. And I do need to put in some little gaps for the little orange that's showing through. It's definitely more diagonal. That's wild. This looks crazy. It looks very loose. Definitely quite a bit crooked. I think I'm okay with that though. We have 1 minute left. And then again, if I really want to, if I love this and I'm like, you know, there's something I really am enjoying about it, I want to come back and revisit it, that's when I will be able to kind of like clean things up, fix things up a little bit. Right here. Little brightness on the edge there. Try to put that in. Yeah, that color's kind of crazy. put some of this in there. So it'll look a little like a little opening. The timer's about to go off. So we're on those final touches. I'm probably not going to be able to finish this one, and I'll come back to this another day. Let's just see how much we can get done before it goes off. Hurry! That's it. Something I would like to do a little bit more is to have that, like I didn't put any of this cast shadow in, so I want to come back and revisit that. But I actually really like this. I like it better when I see it on the screen. So I'm not going to put any words on this one, but I am going to leave it like this. And I think like this thing right here doesn't really like come through. It kind of almost blends in here. So I think I mean, it does it a little bit there. It took me a minute to realize that was even there. But I'm going to probably come back and touch that up a little bit. Now, again, this I'll kind of leave for the video, but it is really important to me that when I do come back and revisit these, that I don't lose the very loose spontaneity of the painting that I already have. Like, if you were to tell me like, hey, paint me some oranges, I would never have done anything this loose. I would never have stopped here. And there's just something that I think that's what I enjoy about the timer. Like it forces me to stop here. And then I see that I've made something very different than the character that I usually, or like the characteristic qualities that I usually have in my paintings. And that for me is very exciting because I just like seeing that there's something very different that's come out of my hand. And I know that this would never have happened if I didn't have that timer going and that timer didn't tell me to stop. So anyway, I don't know. That's where I'm coming from when I do these things. So I'm going to move over to the next one. We'll come back over into this sketchbook. Both of these sketchbooks are the exact same one. So it's the same paper on all of them. We're getting close to our final paintings. We only have 3 more images left over. If you feel like you need to, take a break. The next image is going to have more objects, and that may present more challenges. So let me make this just a little bit bigger if I can. I really like this one, but there's a lot of stuff. So let's do what we can and not stress about the things that we cannot control here. I mean, if this is a lot of stuff, just pick 1 or 2 peaches to work on. That's what I would suggest. I really like this one that is in the front, the one that's like facing forward with the little like leaf. I think that's a challenging position. So, but I think I'm going to try and paint them all, or at least put in like some little shapes for them. So 10 minutes on the clock. Let's go. So one of the things that I recommend for anybody who is kind of struggling to kind of like loosen up their painting style, if you want to do that, is to shift from holding your brush like this, close to the bottom, right, to holding it back here. And this really will loosen up your mark making. I'm going to try this for this one, and I'll show you how it helps me in mine. Now, this is another one of these examples where, you know, the image is kind of going this way and my paper goes this way. So I don't love that. I'm going to put in as much as I can. And I'm going to start with that one that I really want to paint, which would be here. And I'm just going to block in what I can. And whatever doesn't fit will go off the page. So for me, one of the things that I always have to think about is context. Where does everything land in relation to each other? So I always, if I put one peach in right here, then I'm looking at where that bowl is on the end of the peach. Like, where does it come in contact with the peach? Or like here where this leaf kind of like has a gap and it kind of overlaps the edge here, and we can't really see the edge because of that leaf. That's going to help me to figure out how big to make everything else. Like even this, I already feel like this needs to be a little bit bigger because it seems to be bigger in the image. And this little guy needs to be bigger too. Okay. So we have that peach. I feel like it needs to be bigger, but in this direction because there's not a lot of room there. The little shadow there, that's weird. The shadow goes here, here, but in the other direction. Okay, that's okay. We're just going to trust the process. And this guy comes in front. Right there. I'm not trying to force it. I know sometimes it's easy to just kind of try to squeeze everything in there, or sometimes we change the shape of things because we perceive them as being, you know, that we perceive the edge of that paper as kind of like dictating where things need to end. Like here, oh, I see a big thing here. This is the bowl, right? And this peach should actually be taller like that. So make corrections if you want to, or don't. You know, you don't really have to. No one's going to be looking at the picture at the end of this. They're going to just be looking at your painting. So if you make some changes, I think that's even better because it takes on like your vision, right? You're not staying too close to the image, which is another artist's vision, right? Wow, this is so loose. I'm even surprised by how loose this is. Okay, I'm going to add a little more white to my palette. So I'm all out. Here, let's try. I'm going to use some of this like lavender for my peaches. So I'm going to make it a little bigger here. And it's got a lot of green in there, so I'm going to try not to put too much in. Okay, now this orange, I mean, it's not an orange, it is a peach. It's going to be bigger, so I'm going to try to make it larger than I already had planned. It's going over the edge, but it's okay. Let's see. Wait, I'm going to pull back. I was getting very close to the edge again. So I'm going to try to pull my hand back so I'm not gripping my brush with wild intensity. Okay, we have about 4 minutes remaining. So there is a lot of stuff in this. So I'm going to try to like evaluate what needs to be put in right now. Think about what is the most important stuff. And for me, usually that is covering paper. Like if I still have a lot of parts of my images that are still bald, right? Like bald paper, I'm going to try to come in and put that in now. Well, oh, I kind of lost control of my brush there. But that way I can mark it where I think it needs to be at the very least. At least I'll have those spaces filled in where I think there needs to be color. Another thing I want to put in before the timer goes off is this little indication of like the table in the back here. I just want to know where that's going to go. And you know, I do think that these could be really good exercises for making big paintings, because then you can take your sketches and paint based on those sketches. So you can use them as your references for making like larger, more developed paintings, which can be really fun, I think, because then they're just like moving further and further away from your references, and they become more and more imaginative and can be really, really fun exercises to experiment, play, and learn from. Add some more yellow in here. Put some of that in there. Loosen up, Erica. I can feel my hand moving, creeping closer and closer to the bristles. So I just tell myself to go back. Back to the edge. I want to stay in a place where I'm not super comfortable, because then I just make like the same thing that I always do. But I'm really trying to like learn about other ways to make things. So that's what I'm trying to do. If I keep doing the same thing, well, I won't learn that much. So that's why I've chosen to torture myself the way I'm doing. Let's not do what you normally like to do. Do something different. Or that's me talking to myself. You do you. You do not have to do what I'm doing. Okay, we got some nice, we have about 2 minutes remaining. We have some big, nice shadows on these peaches, and they're very dark. Let's see, I'm going to use something that I mean, I hardly have any of it there, but I see it as like a big shadow on the peach. I'm going to use this like very dark purplish blue. Wow, this is so loose. I don't think I would have ever made this if I didn't force myself to kind of work very different than my usual practice. And I mean, I'm not sure like I love what I'm doing, but I do love that I'm trying something different. And oh, whoops, I made a mistake here. Wait, I definitely made a mistake and I'm a little lost, but I'll come back to that. I blended these two peaches together. So I'm going to try to fix that a little bit later. But yes, I'm not sure that I really like what I'm doing, but I do like the brushwork, and I think that that could like inform how I make other things. So we will see. We'll see how it informs me. So let me put in some shadows because we are almost out of time. Less than a minute remaining. I want to try to get like something marked in for those. I even have like really chunky brush strokes. So it's kind of like impasto painting, thick marks I wouldn't normally have. There. Right there, there's a big chunk of, a big glob of paint on my there we go. That's time. Okay, those, oh, when I see these on the screen, I mean, they're kind of a surprise to me, but I don't know. I'm very interested in what's happening here. I don't know. It's not something I would normally paint. You're working with Tombow markers after watching your videos. Yeah, I think so too, right? Because the Tombow naturally gives you, Sarah just mentioned this in the chat, just so that you know. She says that working with Tombow markers after watching my videos also encourages looseness. Yes. And I think one of the things I like about the Tombow markers that encourages that is that the Tombow markers already leave like strokes behind. And some people hate that, but I think that's what encouraged me to be a little bit looser, because you're already going to see the process. So you might as well just like embrace it and like use it to your advantage is what I think, you know. So this is my painting for this one. Let me just take that away so I can see it a little bit more. There we go. And it's odd, but actually I'm kind of into it. I don't know. I like the way it looks on the screen, and when I see it up close, I'm kind of like, eh. But I'm going to revisit this later, and I'll see if it's something that I want to play with a little more. If you are not on the Patreon, or if you are on the Patreon, let me just tell you, you know, patrons, you know, like this month, our PDF homework was painting like a fauvist, right? So this, I kind of feel like this is kind of like moving in that direction. And for me, that's very exciting because it's just very different than how I normally paint. So I don't know, am I finding like a new era of painting loose and expressive and more expressive than normal. I hope so. I don't know. I'm kind of excited about that. We'll see. Let's see where this goes. Okay, we have two more images, I think. Let's see. Which one did we just did this one? So let's see. This one. Okay, 10 minutes. I feel like this is easy compared to the other ones because it's just like so little stuff. Like it's not like the other ones. So, but although that is not, really an easy form, but we shall try. Let's see what we can do. 10 minutes on the clock. I'm already feeling like that's kind of overwhelming. Let me get some more yellow because I'm out of yellow yet again. I'm definitely out here. I might need to treat myself to some new gouache for Christmas. Just curious, when you have a moment, what art supplies are on your Christmas list this year? If you have any on there. I don't have any on there, but that's what I spend my money on. I spend my money on art supplies. So if I have money, I will buy myself some little treats like art materials because that's what I want. So I'm curious if you have that on your Christmas wish list. Virginia, who's one of our our patrons, said that she was looking at those little cameras that we talked about, like in this summer on Patreon, the little Ivy ones. Those are so cool. So if you have someone who likes to do collage, or if you like to do collage in your own practice, having those little like portable printers, so convenient. Like I never had one and I saw somebody was using them in their collage work and I was like, I want to try that. So I got one of those and I really, really liked it. Okay. I was a little worried about whether this was going to be able to come through. I feel good about that. I feel like I can tell what this is, ish. Just playing again. It's okay if it doesn't quite work. It's not the end of the world. We're so lucky to be able to make stuff that is very low stakes. It's okay if we don't get it right. Doesn't really affect anything else. It's just practice. How do they say practice? No. How does it go? Practice, progress, not perfection. That's what we're always aiming for. And the other thing is that we always have to remember too is that practice perfection, I guess, looks different for a lot of people. Like what you want or what you want to see might not be the same as what someone else wants to see in their work. And so, I think that we have to leave room for that, make room for that kind of idea that sometimes people have different goals. You can have a different goal too. What you're aiming for can be very different. And I think that's amazing. We have that flexibility and it can be different from one day to the next. And I think that that's definitely the spirit of my making. I like to try everything. I want to try different ways to make. I'm always looking for the thing that is going to make me really excited to make. I want to feel like I'm enjoying this and not just feel like it's just work. Let's see. Let me check the chat. Canner says, I'm thinking about the acrylic brush pen as your gift to you. Oh, really? The acrylic brush pens. Are those the ones that... I know I tried the shuttle ones. Have you tried a different one? Is there a different one you have in mind? The threats of tariffs. I know. From the incoming U.S. administration is encouraging me to purchase more because I foresee things being much more expensive. I know. Especially because a lot of art supplies are not local. I mean, or like things like, for instance, like a lot of the gouache I use is Japanese. So, I mean, what is that going to mean for us? Like, can we not make art anymore? I hate it here. Just kidding, but slightly kidding. I mean, I just want to be able to afford, and art supplies are so expensive. And we talk about this a lot as like teachers because, obviously, notoriously public school funding is very like low. I mean, we don't get a lot. It's not low in the grand scheme of things, but it is, low. And if you're an art teacher, art supplies are so expensive. And I don't think like administrators often know this. Like they don't even know what the stuff is that we're buying. Like to them, it's just like abstract, like what is this? What even is gouache? What is this weird word that we're seeing on the on the purchase order? But like art supplies are so expensive, and when you're buying for like 100 kids, it just really shapes how you have to think about what is possible. What you might want to do might not be possible, and so that limits what your students can do, right? You haven't tried it. You're debating which ones to try. Just the Posca chisel and the brush tips. Yeah, Kenner, I have tried those two, and I like them for sure. But I did try just recently, and this is of course not sponsored or anything like that. I just want you to know that I did try those. Like they're kind of cheap, like cheap brush tip acrylic markers. There we go. From I think I got them on Amazon or something like that, and they are they're called Shuttle, the brand. And it was the first time I'd really seen a brush tip acrylic marker. I don't think I'd ever seen that, and I really liked it because they remind me of the Tombos, and I like that brush, the kind of like line work you get from that kind of a brush tip, right? And the cool thing about these was, and I thought it was also surprising, is that the sorry, thinking, processing here. You don't have to like, prime them. You know how like with the Poscas you have to like, I don't know how to say this, like tap them onto the paper, and then they start to like the paint starts to like come forward or come out. You don't have to do that with those Shuttle ones, which I thought was weird because all of them make you do that. I was just like pleasantly surprised by that. And I did like them. The only qualm I had about them was that I thought that they ran out faster than other ones. I've seen the Art X ones. Yeah, I know. You won't know until you play with them. That's the thing that I don't like. Because then you spend all that money, and they're not cheap again. A lot of traditional gouache, so I keep tubes of veggie drawers. And you do? Sarah, are you serious? I love that. I'm going to start doing that so that when people come to my house, they think I'm even weirder than I am, because that is so funny. And does the refrigeration help them or like keep them, fresher or something? I'm very curious about this. I have so many questions. We need to talk. Okay, I'm going to put in a little bit of shadow. It's there. It's just a little hard to see. So I'm going to just put in maybe something a little bit lighter than usual. I want it to be rough shadow. Yeah, I was thinking about like the whole thing about tariffs too, which is just like the stupidest thing. But because of the fact that I'm having to like consider, what things are going to cost and what I need to buy now. I mean, I don't know. Do you think, I don't know. I'm just like, you just don't know. We don't realize like how many things are not made here, how many things are imported. And honestly, that's like the beauty of the world we live in, like where we have access to so many things that in a different age we wouldn't have had. And it's infuriating, but it is what it is. Okay, we have 1 minute remaining, almost exactly 1 minute. This kind of looks rough to me. It's like a little hard to tell what's happening here, but I can tell that there are some like areas here that are kind of complicated in terms of like the contrast doesn't really show up. And so it's making it hard to see where the fruit begins and the peel ends. So I'm going to try to put a little bit of light on that area, kind of bring it like almost like an outline to help define that. And we shall see how that looks. This is actually a very challenging image to draw. I was like, oh, this looks like it will be fastest and easiest, but I was wrong. I tell you that right now. I apologize to all of you. I was definitely wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I love you. Okay. What is this, do you think? Like a tangerine or a clementine? I'm going to put clementine on there. I don't know. It might be a tangerine or a... I'm just going to write it. I haven't written a word in a while, so I need to. I need more brush strokes. Behind. And sometimes if they don't fit, I just let them go off the page. There we go. Clementine stamp. There we go. Okay, Sarah says, you've heard that it helps them from drying out. Interesting. Also because my art room has so many temperature fluctuations throughout the year. Oh, you're in Maryland. Okay. Is your art room like outside or something? Because I can imagine it's pretty cold there right now, right? Okay, here's my clementine. It's, I don't know, it's a little vague, but I'm kind of into it. It definitely reads better on all of these. Read better on the screen than they do to me in real life. I don't know. Maybe it's just like I'm too close to them. I have to kind of back up. But all right. We have one more, I think. We're almost done, you guys. We're almost done. We're doing so good. I'm so proud of us. We are, honestly, we're crushing it. Like, it's like, I'm going to be your cheerleader, like for your, you know, what do we talk? Like I did a 5K yesterday, which I'm not a 5Ker. I'm not a walker that much. I mean, I do walk. That's it. I don't run. And oh my God, I felt like I was so exhausted. And that's not even that much. It's wild, but it was fun. It was such a fun experience. Okay. Sarah says, Thule art pens are a great, less expensive alternative to Posca. Thule, Tooli-art. I've never heard of those, Sarah. I'm going to go look for them. Canner says that they read an eye-opening book called A Year Without, made in China. Oh, wow. I bet. It followed one family's quest to purchase nothing that had been made in part or entirely China for a year. And was it like very challenging? I think I need to pick up that book. That sounds interesting. And the Thule art pens, the Thule paint pens are available on Amazon. Okay, thank you for sharing that. I love that every time we have these kind of like sessions, I learn new things that I need to add to my wish list. Yeah, I think that's like wild to think. I mean, the number of things that everybody's like, oh, we're just not going to buy, you know, electronics or something. But no, like everything, like little pieces. I remember there was something that I needed like a part for this like mat cutter that I have at school. And it was like so hard to find it. And they were manufactured in China, of course. It was like but it was like a small, tiny little piece. And I think people don't think about that. So we'll just see how we'll have to see how this like pans out. I mean, so what I'm hearing is I should stock up on art supplies. Is that what you're telling me? Because I can do that. All right, last drawing or painting of the day. 10 minutes. Let's go. My paint water looks like coffee, and it is actually looking very delicious right now. Hi, Raquel. A few months ago, you stalked my old IG post and found out that I used to paint with oils. Yes, I did. You know, I have thought about it. So I actually like painted almost entirely in oils, and in school, like that's what I painted with. I was an oil painter. And then when I left college and I became a mother and a barely part-time practicing artist and a full-time art teacher, I stopped painting entirely. And so when I did decide to go back to painting in oil, it was in I always want to say 2015, but it might have been 20. No, I think it was 2015. And I decided that I was going to do a year of painting. So I started on on New Year's Day, and I just started with oil paint. And I did that out of pure, like, I mean, that was what I knew. But also, I should say, sketches and scrubs. Hi. The other thing I should say is that I I knew that, and I felt like that's where I was the most comfortable. But also, I don't know. I went to school at UT Austin, so I was an art student there, and I felt like I didn't learn everything I could have. I There's a lot of things I would do differently if I could go back to art school. I feel like at one point in time, I really thought I knew what I was doing. And I was like, I have a vision for my collection of art and my series of work. And I don't need anybody else's feedback. And I feel like I really closed off my learning at that point. So, anyway, what I decided to do was to really like practice and try to learn. So, I wanted to learn more. I knew like the mechanics of painting in oil, but I had never really like studied observation painting as much because when I was in college, I was doing a lot of like abstraction. And so, yes, I was painting in oil, but I wasn't really recording things. So, I started back painting. I feel like I learned so much in that year. And I will share with you the book. I read this book, or I bought this book from an artist. Her name is Carol Marine. And she has a book called like A Year of Daily Painting or something like that. And that's really what got me involved in daily painting again. And it was so like, it's just kind of funny. You know how those things tend to like just, I don't know. I don't know if you're like me. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, this was so serendipitous. It was like just so perfect because I saw the book Daily Painting and by Carol Marine, and then I loved Carol's painting style, right? I was like, oh my God, I love her work. And I mean, I know she's on Instagram. You can find her and like follow her work there. And she was painting every day and she was selling her paintings. And I just loved her work, right? So I think, I don't know if I like reached out to her. I like emailed her or like maybe contacted her on Instagram. I don't remember exactly how I connected with her, but I did. And it's so weird, you guys. This is so weird. Let me tell you something weird. So then what I discovered is that Carol and I'm starting to feel like I need to get the book. When I'm saying Carol, it's sounding like it's not the right name, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay, but anyway, the weirdest thing is that it turns out that Carol and I went to school at the same time together at the same school. And I didn't know her. Like I don't we were not like friends in school, but we were there at the same time. We were both art majors. We both had a very similar experience. I said to her, like, I really feel like she told me at one point, like, I don't feel like I really learned how to paint and that she really learned it by doing it on her own. And then I was like, me too. That's how I feel. Of course, I think that mine was because of me being, thinking that I knew everything and I didn't need to learn anything. But it was just so weird. Like, what are the chances? Like, I found this person online. I liked their work. I read their book. I was like, I'm going to start doing this. And then lo and behold, we both went to school in the same place. We both were there together in the same year. And I think we graduated like maybe 1 year apart from each other or something like that. But we didn't know each other. Like, I didn't know her. And I don't think she knew me either. But anyway, isn't that weird? I think that's weird, right? Tell me that's not weird. That's weird. So anyway, that was the weird story. And So I ended up like I was very inspired by her work and the fact that like her experience, and we have 4 minutes left. And so I started daily painting, and I did. Wow, I totally got off track, Raquel. I'm sorry. Totally onto something else. Um, so I did it because I had oil paints, because I knew how to oil paint, and I did it just because that's what I had, right? So that was a super like productive year for me, one where I learned a lot. I ended up, besides doing daily paintings, I painted so many paintings that year. I mean, like literally, like towards the end, I started like I would do like little tiny ones. So they were like about like 6 by 6 inches, and they were just little studies and of objects, right? And then I started like sizing up, and I became very fast because I had a little girl. My daughter was very young during that time. Um, she was definitely in elementary, I think, maybe middle. I don't know. Um, and I didn't have a ton of time. It was like, come home from work, make dinner, and then I'd be like, you do homework and I'm going to go do my homework, which was painting. And then, rinse and repeat and do it over and over, right? So I didn't have a lot of time, and it was, something that helped me build like speed. And then I got like a little bit more accurate as I got more practice in. And so I learned a lot, in short, I should just say. That's what I learned. And I ended up having a show at the end of the year. I made tons of paintings. That's when I started my shop. Well, like I had already had a little bit of a shop, but I didn't really put that much on there. And then I would put my paintings up, and I would sell like almost all my paintings I sold. I think I have a couple of them left over from that. But I mean, let me just tell you, one of the things that kind of shifted my mindset was that I had some pretty terrible paintings that year. Like, I had good ones, and I was like, wow, this is a great painting. And then other ones that I was like, oh my God, this is shameful. I hated them. And so I had both ends of the spectrum, but no matter what, I shared them, right? So having Instagram helped me be accountable. And then I wanted to post a painting on my shop every day, if I could. And it was weird because this is something I always tell like my students too. Like there were some paintings I did that were terrible, like so bad. And I was like, oh, these are so ugly. And it was like, I remember one time I painted I painted shoes for like a couple of weeks. So like, what else do I paint, right? So I was painting shoes and sneakers and all sorts of things, right? And I painted these sneakers, and it was just such a bad painting. It was like an Air Jordan or something like that, like my brother's shoe or something. And it was just bad. And I was like, whatever, I'm still going to show. I'm going to still show people my bad paintings. I'm not going to be ashamed of my bad paintings. They are part of the process, right? And I posted it on my Etsy shop, and I was like, here, bad painting for sale, bad painting of shoes. And it's so weird because even like my bad paintings, I mean, I thought they were bad. They would sell. Like I remember that one, I sold it to somebody, like I was all surprised because it was like the Houston Texans. Like I shipped it to like the stadium, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody wanted to buy this ugly painting. And it just made me rethink like the way I talk to myself as an artist. Like, oh, this painting is so terrible, and why would anybody want this? And nobody should care about this. And that was the kind of way I spoke to myself as an artist. And that year of painting really changed the way I came, or I like showed up for painting, or like the way I practiced painting, the way I engaged with it, and made me think so much differently about it. Like I sold the most paintings I'd ever sold. I had a show that was all, oh, sorry, you guys. I had a show that was all like my year of painting. And it just really made me look at my practice in a different way. And I think it really contributed to my growth. It changed the way I made decisions as an artist, and helped me to think about my work in a way that was, still pretty critical, but also, more accepting of my style. Like I felt like I started to develop my style. I always was one of those people who felt like, how do you make a style? Like, what is a style? I didn't know what my style was. And, I just feel like I learned so much in that year. And yes, I would like to come back to oils. One of my students is painting or started painting in oils this year. And I was like, I want to paint oils too, like just smelling it. And I'm like, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's go again. So, yeah, I would definitely think of coming back to oils. Would you, Raquel, like to learn oils? Are you an oil painter? Do you want to try that? Should that be something we incorporate into our Patreon? Because I know you're there. So, I mean, what do you think? You tell me if you want to do that, because I'm so down. So down. Just say the word and I can make it happen. Of course, I might need to buy some new art supplies. So, just let me know. Anyway, this is the last painting, right? Tomatoes. I was jabbering on and on and on, so I didn't really get all the way in there, but I kind of like it like this again. I don't think I would normally leave something like this raw, and I'm kind of into it. So I don't know. We shall see. Yes, thank you, Sarah, for being here. I appreciate your company, and I hope that you made some paintings in here that you like. Oh, I hope you like that. It was very long. I'm sorry. You would really like to see what you're able to do now with oil painting. Yeah, right? Let's learn together. Maybe we should. I've had a lot of people mention oil painting to me, and it's one of those mediums that feels so like, what's the word I want to use? Let me just come back here to chat. I think that oil painting is one of those mediums that seems so out of reach for a lot of people. It seems like, so hard to do, like the learning curve. And I made a lot of mistakes as an oil painter when I was a kid, and I was just trying to experiment with it. And I was like, oh my God, I did things I shouldn't have done with oil paint. So, yeah, I'm going to keep that in mind. Let's see if we can do that in the coming year, right? That would be so cool. But anyway, thank you guys so much for being here with me. I really appreciate you guys keeping me company. I did a lot of paintings that we did. I think it was 7, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7 paintings today. Many of these are very loose, and some of them I might like. And then other ones, I might feel like I want to come back and revisit them a little bit. So I might do that. And I'm going to share how I would revisit them in my video, which should be available today or tomorrow. I'm going to put it on YouTube, but patrons get first dibs, so you get to see it first. And yeah, I'll show you how I kind of take them from these very loose exercises to something a little bit more developed. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you guys had a fun painting day. I hope you did something, you got like a lot of paintings done and you're very productive and you're so proud of yourself, because you should be proud of yourself, because this is something that can be very hard for us to make time for and really like embrace like all the little flaws and the learning experiences that we get from the practice. So I wish you guys a great weekend. I hope you guys have had a great holiday, and I will see you in the next stream. If you have any questions or you want to share your work with me, please definitely tag me on Instagram. Share photos with me. You can find me on Instagram under Erica Beeswax. So Erica with a K, Beeswax. And I would love to see what you did. So have a great weekend, you guys. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.